Theo?
Okay.
Cool. All right. Well, first and foremost, thank you everyone for jumping on to this webinar today. I think that the point of today's session is just to make sure that everyone fully understands what a Handshake virtual career fair looks like. We'll go through a lot of detail. I'll share an agenda shortly, but just a bit of webinar housekeeping before we get going. So if you have any questions throughout the entire session, please use the Q&A box at the bottom. So ask away throughout. We've left some time at the end of the session to address any questions that come in, but make sure you use Q&A rather than chat, and we'll address them as soon as we can. So in terms of an introduction, myself and Theo here today, I'll introduce myself and then hand over to Theo. So my name is Chris Anthony. I'm part of the strategic employer partnership team here at Handshake, focusing on building our presence in the UK. Just a little bit of background on me. Prior to joining Handshake, I've been here for about 5 months now, but prior to joining Handshake, I built the commercial function for a business called Talentful. And prior to that, I was the managing director of a graduate recruitment business. So my entire career has been within the talent acquisition space, with businesses focusing heavily on graduate hiring or early careers, or with businesses that are trying to disrupt the traditional recruitment methods. So it's lovely to see you all on the call, and I'll just hand over quickly to Theo.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So my name's Theo. I'm a customer success manager here at Handshake. So I advise our premium customers on how to adopt virtual recruiting, and then specifically make sure they understand how to use the Handshake technology to its fullest potential. I've been with Handshake since April 1st of 2020, which means I have witnessed the full transformation of this company from an in-person facilitator to a fully virtual platform, and have been here since the beginning of the pandemic, which is an interesting time to be with the company, but excited to share some best practices on virtual recruiting with you all today.
Awesome. So quick view of today's agenda. I think it makes sense for us to add some context to the whole conversation and just quickly recap or re-intro into what Handshake is. We'll talk about some of our findings from our virtual career reports that we've been running, and obviously the exposure we have to the overall network. And then we'll jump into the actual platform and make sure that everyone is fully set up for the upcoming. We have 2 more Handshake hosted virtual career fairs that are on the horizon. So we want to make sure everyone is fully set up for those sessions. Again, as I mentioned, if you have any questions as we're going through any of this, please just pop it in the Q&A box. So first and foremost, what is Handshake? Well, Handshake is essentially the largest early talent network in the world. We are powered by our partnerships, which equate to about 1,200 university partners, about 550,000 employers, and about 19 million students. And as you can see from this slide here, Handshake sits in between the 3. So just to provide a little bit more detail on what that actually means, when we partner with universities, we actually become their virtual engagement platform as a university, as a career service. And on top of that, they will then import their student population into Handshake. Now, when we partner with students, we become a professional networking platform for students. They can utilize Handshake to apply to jobs, attend these career fairs, send and receive messages from employers. And then finally, as you can see, we become a career management platform for employers. So you will have the ability, or employers will have the ability, to access this network of students, and Handshake sits in between the 3 sides of the marketplace. So that's a little bit on Handshake and how it sits. I think if we look at the legacy models that existed here, so historically the actual process of attending career fairs was quite limiting. Employers would have to engage individually with universities, attend multiple fairs. Even if employers are looking to engage with a large audience, there are some time constraints around actually reaching those students. Maybe the recruitment team isn't big enough. It's very hard to do. And that leads to employers typically visiting the same universities, meeting the same types of candidates, and that could potentially limit the diverse candidate pipelines that employers are obviously trying to build. Now, the Handshake model gives employers a more streamlined and structured way of connecting with universities via one trusted source. So as you can see here, Handshake allows you to post jobs, register for fairs, and interact with multiple universities all at once. So hopefully that gives you a bit of context around Handshake and how it works. it's important to talk about the network. So we mentioned that the Handshake network is growing really quickly. This is UK specific here. So within the last year, we've grown the network by about 90,000 students, and we've got 13 more university partners. So you can see the time that we've been here based in the UK. I think by the end of this year, we're projecting to have a network size of students somewhere between 200 and 250,000. And we'll look to double that again next year. So obviously with a rapidly growing network, there's a lot more access to students for employers. And obviously from a student's perspective, you know, it's a great place for them to find their next career move. Another thing that I wanted to quickly discuss was some of our findings, because obviously the size of the network and the exposure we have to the early career space, we can feed back on the trends that we tend to notice. And what we're seeing is that virtual is pretty much here to stay. So one of our findings, having surveyed higher educational professionals as well as employers, the results are fairly overwhelming in terms of virtual being the preference. You know, 4 out of 5 employers want some sort of virtual or hybrid model when it comes to engaging with students and attending career fairs. So there's quite compelling data there. It suits them a bit better. And then from a student's perspective, it's also the same. So there's some impactful stats here in terms of what their preference is. You can see with the highlighted words that students are leaning towards preferring virtual career fairs. They find them less intimidating. There's a lot more flexibility around actually attending career fairs virtually. They're easier to prepare for, and just generally, they're a lot more convenient. So from our kind of experience and exposure in talking to these networks, you know, virtual is something that is certainly here to stay for the long term. And then the final slide on what a career fair or Handshake career fair actually looks like. So, you know, typically, as we mentioned earlier in the session, you know, if you attend a career fair, you're kind of putting a stand up at a session, waiting for good students to walk past you. Handshake allows you to manage all of your virtual events in one place. So you have the ability to source for specific students. You can attend career fairs and register for specific ones that are taking place. With this, you will then, and Theo, I'll hand over to Theo shortly to actually show you how to do this within Handshake, but in there you can set your schedule. So you can create one-to-one sessions, you can create group sessions, and actually invite the specific students you're targeting to these sessions. And that allows you to have much more productive conversations with a higher quality of candidate that you're actually looking to speak to through the career fair. You can host the conversation within Handshake, you can evaluate the students, you can review them, and then you can manage the call to action. So Handshake allows you to manage your entire virtual event strategy all in one place. So hopefully that makes sense. As I said, if there's anything that I've covered that requires a question, please pop it in the Q&A box. And that will give you a bit of an insight into virtual career fairs. Next over, I'm going to hand over to Theo to just run through some detail in the product and bring a lot of what I've just said to life. So I will pass over to you quickly, Theo.
Thanks, Chris. Georgia, I think you had a question about group sessions. Yes, absolutely. And looking forward to showing you how to do that right now. So let's see. Can you all see the Handshake homepage?
Yeah.
Cool. So what I want to walk you through today, you know, a big part of virtual recruiting is the virtual career fair experience. And so today what I'm going to walk through is how do you sign up for a fair? What are some of the best practices that I've seen with the clients I work with in terms of how to get students to come and how to generate interest in a virtual career fair? And then particularly how to promote the fair ahead of time so that you're not wasting time and money with nobody coming to talk to you. So those are sort of the 3 steps I want to go through. So for this page should look familiar if you've ever logged into Handshake. This will be your home page, and if you're going to be looking for a fair to sign up for, that's going to be down here in the bottom left under fairs. And what you should see here are all of the kind of 41 actually fairs that are coming up that are posted on Handshake in the coming season. And you can see this little breakdown here between virtual and physical, and that speaks to, I think, the breakdown that Chris was referring to, that really the majority of these types of events are taking place virtually for the foreseeable future. So this is where you're going to filter for some of the types of fairs that are coming up. You can filter by university host, you can filter by location type, you can see which ones you've already registered for. So let's say we wanted to sign up for this Careers in Tech virtual fair. You hit the registration button here in the top right on the page, and it'll take you to a custom form, effectively. So this Handshake fair that we're hosting coming up is free of charge, but the universities who are hosting their own fairs over the course of the year may have a fee associated. This form is completely customized. Chris was talking about how we work with universities to essentially create a platform that powers whatever it is they're doing with career services in relation to their students. So that could mean advising appointments or mock interviews. There's a whole portion of the product that is not employer facing, and this is sort of where that intersection begins. So there is some element of custom form that we've created for those universities. This will be different for every fair, but you'll sort of see that there are several options that may be associated with each fair. Fill them out as needed and hit create registration in the bottom right. Should be a pretty simple process for registering. But the completion of this form is only the first step in making sure that you have a successful day, right? What this form basically does is it lets the university know, or lets the host of the career fair know that you're coming. It hasn't actually let the students know yet. So as an example, I'm going to flip over, this is the real world, I'm going to flip into our demo product now. And this company here, CSB Logistics, is a demo company. And there's a fair that they've just registered for. See if I can find this. It's a virtual fair at Cornell. And it's taking place on Christmas Day. So you can see that that approve button has turned to a green check mark. So they are registered for this fair. But the next step that they need to take is the most important. You'll get an email notification about this once the university approves you, but you need to create a schedule for that fair. So when we made the shift to virtual recruiting and really re-envisioned what a career fair looked like in a virtual environment, we made a pretty conscious decision that what we didn't want to do is have just a free-for-all kind of bun fight where people would just sort of show up and jump into a Zoom room and kind of talk over each other. What we wanted to do was create a more orderly experience that could be scheduled, Chris made that point earlier, ahead of time. So students would then know who they're talking to and when and what they're going to be talking about. And employers would know who's coming, do they have a full schedule or not, and what types of students are they going to be talking with. Then it just sort of felt like that was going to be a better experience all around. What that also meant from the student point of view is that students were a lot more confident. Students knew what to prepare for. They didn't have to think about, you know, if I'm doing a session where I talk to a recruiter, there's nobody sitting over my shoulder listening to my stupid questions. I can ask whatever it is I want. It's in a private environment. But the key to enabling all of that is that you, as an employer, do need to create a schedule. So once you have an approved registration, this tab will appear, schedule, and you'll see that it says you need to add sessions to your fair to make it accessible. To prove why this is important, I'm going to flip over and show you what this looks like from the point of view of a student really quickly, because I think that's just very helpful context as well. So if I am a student and I want to go to that very same career fair on Christmas Day, here it is. Bear in mind that employer CSB Logistics has signed up for the fair. Their registration has been approved. If I browse through the available sessions, I don't see CSB Logistics on that page. They don't show up anywhere because they haven't created a schedule. Bank of America has created a schedule. Airbnb has created a schedule, so I can sign up for these sessions, but I don't see that employer CSB Logistics. So how do we solve that problem? Let's go back to CSB Logistics. And here they are at the Christmas Career Fair. So what you're going to need to do is add sessions. So what this will take you to is a 4-step process for setting up exactly that schedule. If you are going to be the one attending the fair, and let's say in this case, I am going to be going to this fair, then you would check your own name. If you have a teammate, maybe somebody who works in your business, who is interested to talk to students, they're really excited to get in front of people, but maybe they've never used Handshake before, they don't know what this software platform is, no worries, you can invite them directly to your Handshake account from this page, or you can add them manually. They will still need to open up an email, confirm their email address, and agree to the terms of service, but you can add their information from this page. And maybe, Chris, you going to be coming to this? You don't seem to be associated with this. We'll choose a different Chris who's going to come. Nice save there, Chris. You don't have to come to this career fair. I'm going to add both of those people. This was a question earlier. We're going to talk about the different types of events that you can host at a career fair. So you can do two types of sessions at a career fair on Handshake. You can do group sessions. That's where one or two individuals will be able to speak to many students, up to 50, or you can do one-to-one sessions where you have that one-to-one interaction with candidates. And what you have to decide is, okay, over the course of the, let's say, 3-4 hours of that career fair, how am I going to break up my time between those two types of event? So that's what these next few steps are going to be doing. So let's say, are we going to be doing group sessions? Yes, absolutely. And we'll do it with the Handshake video session. You need to give it a title. Here's where best practices come in. What I see a lot of employers doing who aren't successful is they will give it a name like group session number 1, group session number 2. Those things don't really resonate with students. You just saw what it looked like from the student point of view. When there are a lot of different employers competing for your attention, you're sort of browsing through what do I think might be interesting. The title is actually really important. So something that's on brand for your organization, that sort of tells a little bit of a story about what you might be hosting in that group session. That's a really good best practice to make sure people are actually interested enough to want to sign up. So let's see. There we go, something like that. And give it a quick description as to what it is you're going to be doing in that group session. So help students understand what it is they can expect. And let's say I'm going to host that. And this is where you would choose finally which of the half-hour slots you want to put that group session in. So group sessions have to be 30 minutes long. One-to-ones are going to be broken up into smaller increments of 10 minutes. So what we do is we take the entire duration of that fair and we break it up into half-hour slots, and you can choose where in that schedule you want to have your group session. Generally, my advice to you all is host it slightly earlier on in the schedule, towards the beginning. What that does is it lets students who are less confident to immediately sign up for a one-to-one have some type of a venue where they can show up, maybe drop in, quietly listen to what it is you have to say, and then maybe if they want to talk to you later in a one-to-one capacity, then they've built up their confidence a little bit, they've heard what you have to say, they've heard your pitch, and they feel a bit more prepared to have a chat. So we're going to do this in the second half hour. If you want to do multiple group sessions, you would click add another here. If you want to do only group sessions, you could fill your entire 3 hours with non-stop back-to-back group sessions. That's totally valid. There we go. And let's just finally choose if we're going to record. We're not. So we'll confirm that. And let's see, we're going to have me lead that session. Next, you're going to decide who is going to be talking one-on-one with students, right? So let's say I would like to talk one-on-one with the remainder of my time. The fair is 3 hours long, and I've only blocked off half an hour so far to run that group session. So for the remainder of the time, I'm going to do one-to-one sessions. Finally, you can choose which types of students you want to have meet with you one-to-one. So if you only want to meet with students who are pursuing a certain course type, you can add those requirements here. Now this demo is actually for the US version of the product, so some of these requirements might look a little different to the UK, but you sort of get the idea in terms of the year. GPA obviously is not sort of applies, but then course is something where you would be able to say, okay, I only want to meet with, let's say, computer science, IT students. Finally, we have this functionality in Handshake where those requirements drop away 48 hours before the fair if you have empty sessions. The reason we did that is we thought it was more valuable for you to meet with people who are slightly outside of your requirements rather than just going to a fair and meeting with nobody. If you are really adamant that you only want to meet with a certain type of students, then you can say, no, I want to keep those qualifications in place regardless. And then for my team member, Chris, I'm going to add some one-to-one sessions, and there are no requirements to talk to Chris. Anyone can drop in. So let's schedule those sessions. Finally, assign the team. You review, okay, I'm going to a group session, and then everybody else is doing one-to-ones. Looks good to me. Confirm and invite team. So what happens now is I'm already logged in, so I can already see my schedule. My teammate Chris is now about to get an email that says, you've been added to a fair, you need to claim that schedule. They need to click that link to actually activate that schedule and confirm that they're available. The reason being, let's reload this, it might be the case that, yes, Chris is mostly available, but maybe he has half an hour between 12:30 and 1 that he can't make, and he might need to mark that as busy. Just to make that fair completely accurate and up to date. Once they've claimed it, students can now see this schedule. And what I'm going to do is just show you, if we go back in as a student, what this fair now looks like. And I always say I'm playing with fire by doing this because I literally just updated that schedule. So let's hope that what I say is accurate. So as a student, I now go to the Christmas Career Fair, look for available sessions, browse through the employers. Oh, there's CSB Logistics. They now appear as someone that I can sign up for, right? I can look at, I want to meet with Theo. I'm going to sign up for his 11 a.m. slot, confirm that. Maybe I'm also interested in that group session. I can view that, read about the company, learn about internships. Yeah, I'm interested in that too, confirm that. Those get added to my schedule. One really important point here is that often if you have multiple people attending a fair, students might not know who to meet with. So if you have, maybe some people send teams of 6, 7, 8, from the point of view of a student, how do I know what Alice does versus Bob versus so on? A really good tip, and Airbnb is a great example. You can put your job title into your profile on Handshake, and that's going to help guide students to understand what it is they want to sign up for. So for example, I as a student can now see, okay, Molly, I get it. She's a recruiter. She's going to talk about everything. Jim, he's only talking about marketing. So maybe I'm not interested in marketing, so I'm going to avoid Jim's schedule, but I will chat with Molly. A little bit of a piece of advice for you there is just make sure that your job title is filled out. You can do that under your user settings in Handshake. Let's go back to the employer's account. And just a quick demo of where that would be. Click your name and then user settings. So that's where you'd update your job title. So we now have a schedule set up. Students can register. What we wanted to chat with you about as well is, okay, this is great. A student can maybe sort of be browsing through listings on their university page, but how do they really know that this fair is coming up, and how do they particularly know that you are coming? You saw what it looks like from the point of view of a student. They have a lot of options. Many fairs have multiple employers coming. So what you probably want to do is start to message some students proactively, do some sourcing on Handshake to encourage them to come to your fair, because you can see that I currently have a fair set up with only one student attending, and that's not a great use of your company's time and money. So how do we fill up these slots and get students to actually attend? Well, a couple of different ways we can do that. What we could always do is we could go over to candidates. And what this would do is give you the ability to see all of the candidates on Handshake that have had some engagement with you. You can also do a detailed search for students, right? And what this would let you do is maybe put in certain filters to say, you know, I only want people who are pursuing a certain course, right? So I'm going to look for the computer science students. And then I would browse through the students one by one, look at their profiles on Handshake, try to understand who might be a good fit. Maybe I take a look at Naomi's profile decide that she could be really interesting to meet with. So I send her a message, and I could say something like, hey, we're coming to this career fair on Christmas Day. Hope you're able to make it. Would love to see you show up. It could generate some interest. Some of the downsides there are that this is one-to-one. And additionally, you're not really sort of directing them specifically to your schedule. You're just alerting them to the fact that you're going to be at a career fair, and you're kind of counting on them to actually take the next step. So what I also wanted to show you are the talent engagement suite. Now, this is a premium paid function. This is what I work with my clients on, and some of the best practices that they have there for sourcing at scale, rather than doing this searching one-to-one. But if you don't have the talent engagement suite, then this search students is probably your best bet for reaching out to candidates and encouraging them to come. So I'll give you a quick look at what that looks like in terms of how we would do some sourcing for these career fairs at a slightly larger scale. So I'm going to go back into the real version of Handshake here. We think of sourcing in 2 steps. We call it segments and campaigns. You could call it search and messaging. It's basically, a segment is running a search of all the students that we have on Handshake, and a campaign is basically deciding what you want to say, and you can time it and sort of optimize when you want to send those messages as well. So I'll give you a quick demo of what that looks like. So in segments, what I'm able to do, instead of sort of going one by one, looking at individual student profiles, is you can see I'm now looking at all of the 115,000 students that we have on the UK network on Handshake. And I can begin to do some filtering. So maybe for this upcoming fair, I'm really interested in students who are pursuing a STEM degree, right? So that's about sort of half of them. I might be particularly interested in those who are, let's say, want to live in Manchester. And because I have a role that I need to fill there. So that gives me 17,000 students. Maybe I'm particularly interested in diversity in my pipeline, and I want to look for all of the women students in STEM who want to live in Manchester. And what you can see is that that number in the top right continually updates. And you can see there are a lot of different filters here. We can look for different skills, experiences, past work experience, and so on. You can sort of filter this to your heart's content. But let's say that that sort of matches the type of profile that I really want to have come to my career fair. So I will give that a name like Women in STEM Manchester and hit save. So I've got that list of 6,000 to 7,000 students saved. And what I'm now able to do is proactively message them to say, you know, we'd love for you to come to the career fair that we just signed up for. What I'll do is I won't actually message those poor students about this non-existent Christmas career fair, so I'll go back into demo and show you what that looks like over there. So here's one I made earlier. I can hit this little envelope icon next to the segment. And there's a lot of different things we can do. We can promote jobs in Handshake, specific events that you host as an employer. But what I want to show you today is how you'd promote specifically a career fair. So 3-step process, you just sort of select the segment and the types of people that you want to message and what you're messaging them about. So this might be my upcoming fair. I choose the fair, it's the one that's happening on Christmas. And then you can apply some exclusions to that. You know, people you've already messaged, people who have already applied to jobs, so on and so forth. And then what you can see is I can actually craft a message to those people that I can schedule to go on a certain date before the fair. I can message them after the fair, as Chris was referring to, that proactive follow-up, or I can choose just a specific date. And what we typically find is that with this, you can take advantage of the fact that we know things like people are more active on our platform in the evening than the morning. So you can pre-schedule messages for certain times of day, maybe 5:30 in the evening. And then those messages can be highly personalized with things like your first name or the course or university that a student is going to. So these messages suddenly become something like this. And what will happen is the career fair itself, and specifically your schedule at that career fair, will be linked in that message. And you can see from the point of view of the student, this then populates with all of that information about a student. Hi, Ada, I saw you're at Cornell studying computer engineering, and I thought you'd be interested in our fair. If the student's name was actually Mike, it would say, hey, Mike, I saw you're at Harvard University studying computer science. It would fill in the particulars of their actual information. So what that then happens is you're able to set the schedule for that. We've chosen the perfect timing, end of the week, and then those 5,000 students that we selected are now going to be invited to actually attend our fair. And what that typically does, what I've seen here, is that employers that I work with that use this approach tend to have, instead of that sort of empty set of schedules, they have completely full schedules, which means they're just getting much higher ROI. If you're sending recruiters to a campus, you really don't want them to be sitting around twiddling their thumbs. You want them to have a full set of students signed up for their sessions. So with that, I think we might turn it over to Q&A.
Indeed. Yeah, thank you very much, Theo. I'm going to just address some of the questions in here. And as I mentioned, if there's any more that come in, then feel free to ping them in. So can we do group sessions? Absolutely. We just went through some of that. I think the follow-up question to this was, can we do more than one group session, even if we're planning on covering the same content? I think our advice from a best practice point of view is probably do multiple group sessions and one-to-ones. So really mix out the schedule so that you've got a full day. The timing of the event is 11 a.m. till 3 p.m. So you could have, 3 half-an-hour group sessions in that time. So that's what I would say to that. I don't know if you'd add anything to that, Theo.
Yeah, what I would say is, I think you sort of saw what that student view looked like, Georgia, like where, you're building your own schedule. And if a little bit of like a game theory kind of thing, like if everyone does the first half hour for a group session, ultimately a student can only attend one. So better to try and sort of go, like most people seem to always put their group sessions on at the top of the hour and they never do the half hour. So like if you do it at the like 9:30, 10:30 slot, then you're sort of counter scheduled against most people. I mean, now that I've said this to an audience of 46 people, you're probably all going to go away and do that. But what I generally see is people tend to stick to those very formalized top of the hour slots. So maybe you can sort of get a bit of an edge by going on the half hour.
Yeah. Next question was, are we required to present in the group sessions? From my point of view, it's personal preference. You can, if you have slides that you're willing to prepare, maybe 1 or 2 slides at the very beginning, just to outline, what the program looks like or whatever the content is for that specific session, then you absolutely can share a screen and go through that. Not required to. If you'd like to host a big conversation where you speak to the students that are there, that's also an option. So it's not a requirement, but it's an option if it is something that you think would help, sell the message of what the group session is there for. And actually, kind of from a technical perspective there, that's easy to do in terms of sharing screen and everything.
Yep, and if you're worried about it, a lot of people are slightly concerned. Handshake's a new platform. When you log into the fair, you probably saw on the top right of my screen, there's a test Handshake video button. So you can do that anytime as soon as you've registered for the fair. So you can go in, play around, see what the look and feel is going to be like, practice sharing your screen, and so on and so forth.
Perfect. Do students have to book sessions before the date of the event, or can they do it on the day? That's a good question. So as we've just gone through a session now in terms of showing you guys how to add sessions to your attendance at a certain fair, once you've created those sessions and they're open slots, you'll be visible as an employer at that event. So students can start to book in, and they can book in on the day of if there are any remaining open slots. I think the main message here is that, we see employers treating Handshake virtual career fairs a little bit differently, in the sense that we actively encourage you filling those slots proactively with students that you want to speak to. So hopefully by the time that you get to the day of the session, they can't book in because your day is completely full. That's generally what I would say to that. But if there are open slots, they can physically do it on the day. So that's that one. Can we prevent people from signing up to multiple group sessions? I don't think they can, but Theo knows the detail potentially a little bit more than I do.
Yeah, hi, Ravina. No, you can't. The reason we decided to do that is we found that employers were often doing different content or different presenters at different times of day, and we just wanted to keep that option open, and it felt simpler to allow students to sort of decide what it is they wanted to sign up for. I'm not sure, Ravina, you can shoot me an email, but I haven't seen too many instances where one student is just sort of blocking up your schedule. Additionally, the group sessions, I mean, they do have a 50-person capacity, so hopefully they're not, there shouldn't be too many problems there.
Awesome.
But sorry, a quick follow-up to that. Students cannot sign up for more than one one-on-one per person, so they can't block an entire person's schedule for the day.
Awesome. Can we do 2-on-1 sessions rather than 1-to-1? What's the answer there, Theo?
The answer is not in the context of a virtual career fair. We do have a product at Handshake called Event Manager, which would let you host your own kind of career fair type events private to your employer, where you can do mixes of group sessions and one-to-one sessions. And those one-to-one sessions can actually also be 2-to-1 as well within the Event Manager product. That's an additional paid module, and it sort of sits separate from career fairs.
Perfect. If we don't have access to talent engagement, how do we go about this? The easiest way would be to get in touch with your account manager if you have one and you know who that might be. It could be myself or one of my colleagues. There's also an email address that you could email, which I'll read out now, but Erica, I'll separately follow up with you just to answer any other questions you might have. But that email address would be ukpartnerships@joinhandshake.com. So if there are any questions with regards to Talent Engagement Suite or anything else that Theo's mentioned on this call, the premium features, then that's the email for you. So that's ukpartnerships@joinhandshake.com. I might put it in the chat in a second. I have advertised the talk that my organization is holding to recruit for our scholarship program. We didn't try this last year. Do you think this might be an effective supplementary activity? Do you understand that question, Theo?
I'm not sure, Susan, I'm not sure I'm quite following the question there, but I think what you're getting at is, you know, if you're doing a talk, would it be beneficial to also sign up for a career fair and sort of use the career fair to accomplish the same kind of goal? If so, yes, I absolutely think that could be a good strategy. You don't actually need to attend the entirety, like a career fair is 4 hours long. If you wanted to sign up and just do 1 half-hour session and then block off the rest of your calendar, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. Perfectly legitimate use of a career fair. Yeah,
and I think just another thing to mention, Susan, in a lot of the conversations that I have with other employers, if you have a really active event schedule that you typically host and it's part of your early career strategy, what we often see a lot of employers do is utilize Handshake and utilize the segments and the campaigns piece that Theo talked about and drive attendance to those extra events that you might be hosting. So yeah, as a supplementary activity, 100%. Is there interaction on the group sessions? Can the students ask questions, or is it just the host talking? That is an open group session, right, Theo?
Yep. So in a group session, very, very similar to Zoom, you have kind of hosting privileges, so you can decide who gets to talk and when. You can mute other students, but they can come off mute and talk. There is a raise hand feature. And as we already mentioned, you can share your screen. So very, very similar look and feel to hosting a Zoom. It's just embedded within Handshake. So yes, there can be interaction if you want there to be. If you don't, then you could just put everyone on mute and talk at them for half an hour.
Don't do that. So in terms of a few more questions, I plan on doing a PowerPoint presentation for the group session. Can we prepare for both group and one-to-one sessions? Is there things we should think about with regards to planning content? That's probably a kind of a bigger question in terms of what kind of content you have as a business and what you think is appealing to students and what they might want to hear in a short session. In terms of planning the day, as Theo mentioned, I'd have a couple of group sessions, a couple of one-to-ones, and I would definitely mark a few sessions as busy. for any one person, there's a potential to have 24 one-to-ones because each of them are 10 minutes long. So I wouldn't advise anyone doing 24 10-minute conversations with candidates. You might burn out, your enthusiasm might wane a little bit. So always chuck in some busy and then plan your day around that. In terms of the actual content, again, it's kind of subjective from business to business based on what you have. I think, George, I should probably connect with you after this and we can just have a separate conversation about some of this stuff.
If I could just jump in there, I think, one of the things that I've seen as a general trend over the last year is that in around about sort of like April, May of 2020, when people first started transitioning to virtual events, there was a tendency towards kind of generic information sessions where I'm basically going to put some corporate brochure up on the screen and I'm going to read it out to you. And what people quickly discovered is that the appetite for that was very, very short-lived. And those who were particularly successful were those who were actually switching to slightly more interactive models of group sessions. So where they were doing, yes, Q&A, but also if you could do like a skills workshop. I mean, a little bit of what we're doing here today, we're trying to train you on best practices so that you go away knowing, okay, I know this, this, and this that I didn't know before. If you can advertise that to students, they're hungry for that type of stuff as well. So prepping them for a job interview or making sure that they feel that they're going to build something. Workshops have done particularly well as well. So what we've seen is a shift away from just sort of a who are we as a company towards I'm now going to provide some value to you as a student that you can maybe even put as a bullet point on your CV. So that's sort of the general advice I would have within the context of half an hour in a group session at a career fair. The best that you can kind of make the case that that's what you're providing and sort of sell that in the description of your event. That's going to be what leads you to be successful.
Yeah, totally agree. Can you talk a little bit more about how the platform will look at the actual fair, video function, screen sharing? I
can go ahead and answer that quickly, Rachel.
Perfect.
So first of all, in terms of video function, I'm not actually going to do it because it will probably create a horrendous feedback loop that will go down in history. And this is being recorded, so I don't want to do that. But you can test the Handshake video, Rachel, before the fair over in the top right, and that'll give you a sense of, as we mentioned, all the kind of functionality you have. On the day of the fair itself as well, so you can see this student has already signed up for this slot. You can see view profile. On the day, this will be accompanied by a new button that says launch video that is sort of individual to that student. If you have full schedules, you'll have a full set of blue buttons and you can launch each of those videos separately. What that prevents is you don't have somebody sort of barging into the room while you're in the middle of a conversation. On the day of as well, it's probably important to note that we do give you only 10 minutes to chat, but we do give you a little bit of buffer on either end, so you can open up that video a little bit early. We give you sort of like a 2-minute warning, pops up that says this session is going to end soon, you have somebody else coming next. So we give a little bit of sort of freedom on the edge of that, but it is a 10-minute video session.
Yeah, and just to add to that, on the day of, we're all on hand to make sure that everything goes smoothly. And we kind of advise that you just get ready for your day. You know what your schedule looks like and you're kind of timely to each event, because the students, it's about the student experience for us. We want them to have a great experience on Handshake and with speaking to employers. So, they will be in the group sessions waiting for employers to kind of log in and everything. So just be cognizant of that's what's going on in the background. And you'll hopefully have some great conversations. Just a couple more questions here. Can there be more than one host for group sessions? Yes, absolutely. That's where you add teammates, which Theo had covered. Last year, when I present. Yeah, so you can present and you can, this one's for Catherine. So you can share your screen as Theo had just showed with testing the video, and a PowerPoint or any screen sharing kind of slides should move along. So that could be a bit more of a technical support question, Catherine. I'll try and reach out to you after this one to get a bit more detail, and then I'll link you to our support function just so I can get the right answer for you.
And yeah, Catherine, one change we have made from last year is that for every career fair, we now have a in-fair technical support chat. that you can go to if anything's going wrong like that, sort of like stuff that is like, you know, I'm on fire and I need this to be fixed immediately. So for every fare, there is now sort of a button that will appear that is, you know, help me, I need some help kind of button. And that will go directly to somebody who should be on hand to fix those types of issues with a slightly quicker turnaround time than sending me an email.
Is there a way to see when other employers have booked their group sessions and to avoid clashing? I don't think employers can see the specific schedules of other employers. Is that right, Theo?
Yeah, no, you can't see you can see who is coming, but you cannot see when they have set up their schedules.
So with that in mind, Ravina, just to answer your question, again, with a Handshake account manager, we can obviously see the schedules, we can see what the day looks like, and we can advise on when you should probably suggest set some of your group sessions. So that's a kind of an account management question there. Catherine, if you've put your own video link in as you use a different tool, will the reminders still show? Can we still share screen? So Theo, I think this question is, instead of hosting it via Handshake video, it's an external link. Are there any differences there?
Yeah, so the way that would work, as I was going through the setup process, I was very consciously clicking the buttons for Handshake hosted video. There was also an option for use my own tools, so whether that's Microsoft Teams or Zoom. A lot of my clients who work in financial services have limitations on which video providers they can use. I totally understand that. Those are security protocols that, you know, you just don't want to use somebody else's video platform. Totally fine. You can put in your own links. What it does mean is that for each separate session, be it one-on-one or group, you do need to put in a separate link during the configuration setup process. So you would need to have those prepared ahead of time. What would then happen is that from the student point of view, when they go to their Handshake career fair page and they click launch video, it would take them to whatever link you've provided rather than the native video within Handshake. From your point of view, same thing, or you could obviously open it from your calendar or wherever you manage your own video. In terms of screen sharing, once you're on your own platform, it would be up to, you know, however things normally look for you on Zoom or Teams or whatever you use.
Awesome. Can we automatically send a follow-up to students after one-to-one sessions with more information / contact details? I think in the conversation, if you've hosted a one-to-one with a student that you have had a great interaction with and you think you'd like them to apply to some jobs, or, you know, you'd want to continue the conversation, I think address a call to action in that conversation. Slightly separate point, but I would absolutely try and have as many live jobs as you currently have in Handshake as well, just in the general grand scheme of things, because there's going to be traffic to your page. But in terms of automatically sending a follow-up message, what would we suggest there, Theo?
Yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen quickly to show you what things look like after you've completed a fair. So here's a fair. This actually happened years ago, but the point still remains that you can then go to your RSVP tab. This will remain active for quite some time, as you can see. And this will be a list of, again, this is in demo, so we only have one attendee, but hopefully you would have a full list of everybody who attended your fair. You can filter them by whether or not they actually checked in and showed up. So you can make sure you're only speaking to the people who actually came, or you can message everyone who RSVP'd. You can filter by source, so that would be, did I reach out to that person via message ahead of time, or did they just sort of organically sign up? And a few other filters down here, course category, graduation date, and so on. What you can then do is you can select all of those students and you can message them in bulk, but it would go separately to each student. So that would be sort of the best place to conduct your follow-ups. And again, with all of these filters on the left, what you can do is you can kind of tailor your messaging to each different student. So for those who checked in, you might have one piece of messaging. For those who didn't check in, you might have something else that you want to say. You still, you know, it showed some intent and interest in your organization, but maybe they didn't come. So you still have a follow-up there that you want to encourage them to continue down the pipeline nonetheless.
Awesome. Another question, can we change our group session bio once we have set the sessions?
Yes. Go to your schedule, and perhaps this is worth sharing as well. Go to your group sessions and you'll be able to manage your team as well as your sessions. Give me 1 second and I'll pull that back up. So here's our Christmas career fair. Go to your schedule. You can see manage team, manage sessions. So if I want to edit your group sessions, edit your one-to-one schedules, create new, whatever it is you want to do, you can go back and change all of these. If you want to add new team members afterwards, remove them, transfer a schedule if somebody on the day of is sick or can't make it or has a last minute clash and you get a replacement, you can transfer their entire schedule to somebody else. So a lot of these kind of, what I really recommend, actually, this is a really good point, is a lot of people come to me and they say, Theo, I don't know exactly who is going to be coming, or I don't know exactly when I want to set all of these things up. And what I always tell them is, if you know one person who is able to come and maybe you don't know the other 5, create their schedule so that students can actually see that you're going to be there, begin to allow students to sign up, and then edit from there. So it's really important that you take that schedule creation step as early as possible, get something on the books, even if it's just one group session, to let students know you're going to be coming. And then if you do have to make changes later on, better to make them then, transfer someone's schedule, so on and so forth, rather than leaving it all completely like a closed book until the last minute. And then that's just a recipe for students not being able to sign up.
Perfect. And bit of a technical question. I have set up a schedule on one event, but it won't allow me to do this on the other. Is there technical issues? We might need to look into that one, Steph, and come back to you. Just I'll ping you separately. Can different representatives set their own sessions, or does the account administrator have to schedule these?
Yeah, so the process here, Julia, is that you, as the person who signed up for the fair, would indicate who it is that's coming. You would send out, basically by inviting them, it would send out a message to them to claim their schedule. And I want you to tell anyone you're inviting, look out for an email from Handshake that says claim your schedule, because they do need to click it. And then what that lets them do is you will have assigned them to, let's say, a mix of group sessions and one-to-ones. And what they need to do is just confirm that they're available. And as I said, they can mark busy for certain slots. So if actually there's like a 20-minute period where they can't be part of that fair, and that does happen because career fairs are quite long, they're 4 hours long, right? So people sometimes have meetings they have to dip in and out of. So they would then use that functionality to indicate which portions of the schedule they can't make.
Perfect. And final question here. Well, I mean,